Rich and Mike Show, Flagler County's hometown sports show. Here are your hosts, Rich Carroll and Mike Licio.
Yes, it's another episode of the Rich and Mike Sports Show. Good Saturday morning, Flagler County. And a good Saturday morning to you, Mike Licio.
Hello, Flagler County. Rich, we're a week past 4th of July. You know what that means?
It's summer vacation.
Yes, the summer sabbatical, as I call it. My summer sabbatical is almost over. I'll return to the day job. But my favorite part of the summer sabbatical is it kind of gives me a little breather between the middle of summer, where we've been kind of going crazy on the sports side until about May, and then at the day job, I'm going crazy till about the end of June, and then I take a little, and then the next thing you know, we are 16 days away from the first day of fall football practice.
I can't believe it. Are you serious?
I am serious, and I spent the week getting ready for those games, starting to put together my notes and finding out things about coaches and finding out about teams. And obviously, it's too early to get involved with players because you don't know who's going to show up where on July 28th, which is kind of just the world we live in, that kids could still move around, and we've definitely seen it where a kid was somewhere in the spring and then somewhere else when they got to July 28th and practice began. So we'll see, but I couldn't be more excited about the upcoming football season.
I feel like we just had our final broadcast a week ago. What's going on here? You're telling me we're getting right back at it? So, no, it really is incredible how quickly it moves, and the summer comes and goes, and we're right back at it. As a matter of fact, look at me. I mean, it's July 12th, right? Our first game of the season is going to be August 22nd. So, I mean, it's right around the corner. It's before you know it, you're going to get these games on the WNZF Sports Network, Flagler Radio YouTube channel. And it really starts off with a bang there on August 22nd at the Ship. The Potato Bowl this year opens up the season. A lot of excitement around that game. FPC Matanzas hosting the game this year, and it's going to be a great way to get the season started. And it's hard to believe, man, that it's literally right around the corner. It's just, I guess no rest, man. But I'll enjoy the rest I have here for the rest of the month, and we'll gear up. And I mean, we're looking forward to football season because right now it's. For me, anyway, it's Major League Baseball and nothing else. So you get that summer swoon, or at least with the Yankees, they just went through the Boone swoon, right? I heard somebody say that, and I thought it was brilliant because it seems like the Yankees every year go for a month without being able to win a game. So it looks like maybe they're breaking out of that a little bit as they enter the All-Star break here. But with the Boone swoon, I'll enjoy that until August 22nd when we get football again here in Football County.
Yeah, the Yankees, it's funny like that because there's always a month where they're the best team in baseball far and away, and then there's another month where they're usually the worst team in baseball, and it's amazing that happens every single year. Now, August 22nd is a little early in the calendar, or at least it seems a little early in the calendar, I'm sure, to some of you listening on the air here, but there's a reason for that. The FHSAA pushed the season back, or pushed the season forward 1 week, I guess back to August 22nd. They pushed it from, usually it would be that last Friday in August, but now it's going to be that second to last Friday in August. And the reason for that is they wanted to add a week that is a statewide bye week. So week 12, the very last week of the season on November 5th, which normally that first Friday in November is the last week of the season, it will continue to be. But there's an extra bye week built in so that if teams have to make up games because of lightning, storm, hurricane, unforeseen events. We've run into places where even though the weather is nice on Friday, some of these fields have taken on so much rain they're unplayable and things like that. They wanted to put in a place where you wouldn't have a situation like FPC had a couple of years ago where they played 4 games in 14 days. You don't want to have those kind of situations. So they've added a bye week to the end of the season. So November 5th, if all the schools, and in our case, our 2 schools, get through the season without any cancellations or postponements, that'll be a bye week before the playoffs. Otherwise, there'll be some games to be made up then, and I think it's a great idea. But that's why the season is so much closer than it normally is this time of year.
Yeah, and you know what? We benefit from it, and it starts with the biggest game of the season for a lot of people in Flagler County. unless there's a big playoff game, which we might get. But anyway, here locally, to crown the champion of football in Flagler County, we get that right away on August 22nd, the Potato Bowl, the Matanzas Pirates and the FPC Bulldogs. And we've talked about it before, Mike. This is a game that could really, for either one of these teams, whoever wins the game, propel them for success throughout the season. It could really be something that's a Kickstarter to a successful season. I think even if you lose in this game, but you have a good showing, and maybe it was competitive and it was tight and you felt like, man, we had a shot, that could also propel you to maybe a positive couple weeks following that game. So it'll be interesting to, this is where the story is going to get started, and it'll be interesting to see from there where the story goes. And for us on the WNZF Sports Network, it's going to stay at the ship for the following week. That's on August 29th, University at Matanzas, and that's probably going to be a very challenging game for the Pirates, Mike.
It could be, and that Potato Bowl, like you said, it's a good Kickstarter to the season. I think the winner of the Potato Bowl, just looking at the schedule here, probably starts 3-1 on the season. University will play both schools. We'll have the Matanzas game. But when you look at the districts, and University is an FPC's district, it's going to be interesting to see. Mainland will be Mainland. I think Matanzas is going to be improved off a 4-6 season, so they should be able to finish second in that district, because the third team in that district is Bellevue, who hasn't won a game since 2022. So they should have no problem being the second team. They would be an upset away from Mainland against Mainland from making the playoffs. So, and you might need that kind of confidence. A win against FPC probably gives you the confidence going into that Mainland game. For FPC, it's going to be interesting because DeLand seems to be mostly back after a 5-6 season. We'll see if they fix the defense, because that was DeLand's problem last year, is they could score with anybody. Do you remember the final score of that Mainland FPC game?
Mainland, what was it, 12-9?
Excuse me, not Mainland. Sorry, DeLand FPC.
DeLand FPC. What was that, 50-47? It was something
62-57. So
I got the 7 right.
University, they didn't lose everybody on their team. They lost everybody because they lost a lot. So
I see.
University.
I'm thinking about University last year. They were formidable last year. Yeah,
they were the district champion. They made it to the second round of the playoffs, and it'll be interesting. They've got a new coach as well. They are actually on their third coach in 4 years, Matt Trumbley, who was an assistant at University for quite some time. So it'll be interesting to see how they turn out. And of course, we're going to have a new look for FPC with Patrick Turner, and we've talked about this a little off air. Last year, FPC was a balanced. They were a high-flying aerial attack, but it's hard not to call them a balanced team when you have a guy like Marcus Mitchell in the backfield as well. They had 5,600 yards of offense last year. FPC returns a total of 129 yards of their total offense. So 98.5% of their total offense is either graduated or moved on. So it's going to be interesting. But what I would say is Patrick Turner does things a little differently. He runs an up-tempo offense, but it's a run-heavy offense. So they try to put points on the board. This is not your ground and pound, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Let's win this game. We'll run the ball 30 times for 100 yards and win the game 10-6. It's not that type of offense. It's an offense that's built to score, that's built to make big plays on the ground and mix in some passing. But it'll be a different look, but it'll still be, in many ways, a high-scoring offense.
Wasn't Spruce Creek a little like that, kind of run-heavy, but also up-tempo and putting a lot of points on the board? They ran the ball well last year, didn't they?
They did. And in the first meeting, they ran the ball really well. In the first meeting, though, I think they had their season high in passing yards, which was surprising for a couple of reasons. One, they aren't a heavy passing team. And two, that FPC pass defense is one of the best. You had Stacy Mitchell, you had Colby Cronk, you had Lucas Sahara, who's one of the few returning players on that team. I'm going to pull it up here. Let's see. Spruce Creek. Go into the old archives here.
The Mike Licio local football archive.
Yep, they averaged 7 yards a carry against FPC. They threw for 253 in that playoff game, which I won't talk very much.
Don't talk about that game, Mike. Don't talk about that game.
Still hurts. I don't know if it's.
You think about those games that we had down the stretch there, the regular season Spruce Creek game, the DeLand game into the playoffs. What incredible excitement that was! And you talk about that offense from the Bulldogs with Hayden Hayes at quarterback, Mitchell in the backfield, all the weapons on the outside, an offensive line that was doing its job. That was as well-rounded an offense I have ever seen, man. Man, it was so much fun to watch. The only thing you lament a little bit is that you only got to see it for 1 year.
And that is true. We only got Hayden Hayes for 1 year. Next year. On the other side, you got the Matanzas Pirates, who last year struggled offensively and were pretty solid defensively. But Cole Walker has transferred in at quarterback. Cole, former FPC quarterback, was the backup at Mainland last year, got some work there. But he comes in with a team that returns all their receivers. And so you have guys like Schendorf and Lerwan, Bass, and Baker. He's going to have some options. The running backs are returning as well. They'll be a little young at that position. They'll have some holes to fill on defense. But this is a Pirate team that I also expect to be a high-flying offense this year and be able to put a lot more points on the board than they have maybe the last couple of years while they've got the quarterback position settled.
Yeah, Walker, he's had a lot of experience the last few years on a successful program like Mainland. And can he be the guy? You mentioned there are a lot of good, Bass and Schendorf, Lerwan, awesome weapons on the outside for the Pirates. And if you could get a quarterback in here that can get those guys the ball with the way that Coach Forrest likes to coach the game, because we saw his first year here. He wants to air it out. He wants to bring the air raid in. He wants a dynamic, versatile offense because he'll run the ball too. But if you have, and we know that these guys are weapons. We know they're really good. You get a guy like Darren Walker who has to be hungry for the spotlight, right? He was back up at Mainland, back up at FPC. Now he gets his shot. I think in the right offense, because it's a very quarterback-friendly offense. Can Walker be the guy to get these weapons the ball? And if he is, we know it. A Coach Forrest offense can be a lot of fun to watch if it's executed properly, and maybe they could get that going this year. That would be a lot of fun.
And one of the things Cole Walker hasn't had a lot of opportunity is to have a full spring practice at one school. I know 1 year he's generally had to transfer a couple times in the summer, and he sat behind some really good quarterbacks. He sat behind DJ Murray here at FPC, and then he sat behind Sebastian Johnson, the talented quarterback at Mainland. He sat behind, what's his kid's name? Nate Harry from Nice, who was not a big name, but he was an electric quarterback. I saw Nate Harry when Cole Walker was at Nice. I saw Nate Harry slice up that St. Augustine defense, and that was a pretty good year. That was the year before St. Augustine went to the state championship game. So Cole Walker's played behind some really good quarterbacks. He's played in a lot of systems, and I think having the full spring and the full summer will help him, because I think that's what hurt him at FPC is he transferred back pretty late, and by that point, Jake Medlock's offense is pretty complicated, and so to try and pick it up on the fly there with only 3 or 4 weeks before the season was tough for him, and Caden Gonzalez ended up beating him out here. But I think with a full season to prepare, I'm expecting a huge year from Cole Walker.
And Caden Gonzalez was another guy. He was a senior at the time, right? And it was his first time ever playing quarterback in full equipment, tackle football at the high school level. First time he played the position, which was incredible, and he did a very good job. So being a senior and being able to sit behind a guy like Caden Gonzalez and see him kind of rise and do what he had to do. And you mentioned the DJ Murray and the talented guys he has seen do it from the backup position. That's a lot of good experience for a quarterback to have, and it makes you hungry, I think, too, because you think, I can do that. And you've seen how it's done, and you've seen the success. I think that's important, too, to help you visualize what you need to do to be successful. So he has a lot of experience. He's seen guys in front of him have success, and I think he has the right coach in Coach Forrest to help get this Matanzas Pirates offense to that air raid, place that we hope to see it this year.
And he's been with very good quarterback coaches. He's been with Jake Medlock at FPC. He's been with Colin Drafts at Nice, who's also had some big name recruits in his time at Nice. So he's been behind some really talented quarterbacks. He's also gotten a lot of good coaching, and I think we're going to see that come to fruition. Now, for FPC, there is a battle. I know Jason Ebding is battling at quarterback, as is Caden Birchfield, who transferred from Matanzas to FPC. He was the signal caller at Matanzas last year. And funny, we talk about the Mike Licio knows everybody, right? Well, Cole Walker's mom used to work with my wife, and I've known Caden Birchfield's mom since she was like 13 years old. She's my sister-in-law's best friend. But I'm just throwing that in there. But anyway, I think, in my opinion, and we'll see, there's still a whole fall practice play. I think that Darius Simmons is going to have the inside track on the quarterback position at FPC, just knowing Patrick Turner's system is very run heavy, and and needs a quarterback who can take the pounding of a running. And Darius Simmons, he's what I call a Throwvember quarterback. Even if he's not in a system where he's going to light up the scoreboard, not going to light up the scoreboard with his arm, he's a guy that, if you look at it, I say Throwvember because in the playoffs, you don't have to air it out 50 times a game to win a playoff game. It helps if you can, but if you don't, you just need a quarterback who, it's 3rd and 7. Do I trust that he can make an 8-yard pass? And that's what Darius Simmons is definitely capable of in this system. He's very accurate. He completed nearly 70% of his passes last year. And like I said, he's a talented runner as well, and he returns to FBC. I think he's going to be the front runner. It'll be a lot of competition, I know, but and I don't know. I haven't talked to Coach Turner about the quarterback position yet. It's just having known Coach Turner as long as I have and seen so many of his teams play, that's just kind of what I'm expecting there. And then they're going to have to retool anyway. They lost Marcus Mitchell, who graduated. Zizek is gone. He graduated, as did Hayden Hayes. You lost a lot of talented players on defense, Station Mitchell, Colby Cronk. But you have some guys coming back. Zayden Green's coming back. Kenneth Robinson is transferred over from Matanzas. And so we're going to have to see how these new weapons fit in. I think FPC always seems to have great offensive line and always seems to find running backs. So I don't think that is going to be a concern. I remember we talked to Coach Turner at the award show, and I said, if you love big offensive linemen, you're going to love FPC.
Yeah, and he's looking for a guy, even when you have that run-heavy offense, to be successful, you got to keep the defense honest, right? You don't want them having 8 players in the box every single play and trying to stop the running game. And you have to keep them honest. They have to respect your ability to make a big play in the passing game so you can open things up in the running game. So, and you keep all those players out of the box. And so if they can get that dynamic from Simmons, they'll be in good shape, because there are some weapons there as well on the outside. So, hey, run heavy, pace the whole thing. And if you have a quarterback that's at least a threat throwing the football, now all of a sudden you have a balanced offense that can do a lot of damage.
And let me correct myself. I said he completed almost 70% of his passes. I was wrong. He completed 77.6%. So almost 80% of his passes, averaged 22 yards of completion. So Darius Simmons is the perfect quarterback for this. He threw for 1,300 yards on 76 attempts. He's the perfect quarterback, in my opinion, for this offense, based on he can take the top off on teams, and he can make plays with his legs. He can make plays with his arms. I think you're going to see him in kind of a similar position to where DJ Murray was a few years ago, where DJ wasn't counted on to make a lot of plays with his arm, but he could make those plays and always seemed to make the great decisions that kept the offense moving. And that's what I'm expecting from Simmons this year. Is I think he's going to be the guy who's always going to have FPC in the right play, always going to have FPC making the right read. And, so I'm looking forward to that, and we'll see how that plays out. But that's just kind of me handicapping, 16 days before fall practice.
Yeah, we'll see both of these teams for the first time on August 22nd at the Ship, the 17th Potato Bowl, which is incredible when you think about it. 17th Potato Bowl on the WNZF Sports Network Flagler Radio YouTube channel on August 22nd. So we're looking forward to that. Well, we have the rest of the summer to keep going through the rest of this schedule here, and we'll post it eventually, but that will get the season started on August 22nd. Mike, you had a cool story yesterday. I just wanted you to tell our audience here on Saturday morning about what you're focused on. And by the way, Mike Licio, local sports reports every Monday and Friday on Flagler's Morning News from 6 to 9 in the morning. Make sure you check it out. Also available on the Flagler Radio YouTube channel and WNZF Facebook page on the WNZF Flagler's Morning News video. So go ahead and check that out. But I thought you had an interesting story there on who you highlighted on the news yesterday morning, Mike.
Yes, a Flagler County legend, and Emma Wood, who is now a infielder and a pitcher at Embry-Riddle University. She's a junior, or she'll be a senior now. I think we got to start calling everybody by what they are next year at this point, right? We're in July. School starts in about a month. I think, so if you were a junior next year, I should refer to you as a senior. And so Emma will be a senior at Embry-Riddle this year. And last year she made the Sunshine State Conference second team. She was on the Matanzas team that won the district championship in 2022. That team lost to Paxton in the first round because they realized that Emma Wood was hitting like 647. I think if I'm not mistaken, she was hitting 647. So she had a triple to lead off the game, and then they didn't pitch to her the rest of the game. And Leah Stevens was a freshman in that game and struck out 14, battled for 6 scoreless innings, but Paxton got to her in the seventh. I remember being at that game. But Emma, that game was actually at Daytona State because of a muddy field. But Emma stayed in Daytona and has gone to Embry-Riddle. And last week, she was named as a Division II academic All-American. So that means that she was recognized for her efforts in the classroom as well as her efforts on the field, because she was also named to All-Conference. And Emma, great hitter. You might have heard the highlight. You know how I am about college softball. I'm the voice of the Flagler Saints, as many of you know, and I was actually talking to somebody yesterday I ran into at Flagler College, and they said, I'm ready for softball season. But anyway, I digress. I got to interview her that first game of the season. She had an RBI double in that game, which started her off on a long hitting streak. She was hitting through 2 weeks of the season. She was hitting 500, and she finished hitting 353. And on top of that, was 1-1 with a 2.59 ERA and 10 appearances out of the bullpen. So, just a great player in Emma Wood, but also a great person. I talked to Coach Sabrina Manhart about what Emma means to this program, and she talked about how Emma stays in touch with the kids and, tries to mentor them as she can. I believe she's actually coaching in the Matanzas softball summer camp this year, as a matter of fact. So she tries to stay connected to the program, but she also shows these girls in this program what can be done, and that, you can come out of Flagler County. If you're a talented athlete, you can come out of Flagler County and have success. And so she has been a big part of the Pirate program as a player in high school, but even as an athlete in college, she continues to be that inspiration to the young ladies at Matanzas.
It's amazing to see some of these local players have great careers here in Flagler County and move on to amazing things, and that's what Emma Wood's doing there. And it was great to hear your report on Flagler's Morning News. Again, Mike Licio, every Monday and Friday between 6 and 9. Check it out. You know what? Mike told me he's coming around on the New York Knicks Mike Brown hire. DJ LeMahieu finally DFA'd by the Yankees. We have a couple minutes left here. We'll talk about that right after this.
Thank you so much for recommending us to your family and friends. When you need a 30, 60, or 90-minute massage, it's real easy to book your appointment online. MassageByNatalie.org. MassageByNatalie.org.
Rich and Mike Sports Show on a Saturday morning. All right, we talked about it a little bit. New York Knicks, their new hire of Mike Brown as the head coach. You weren't too hot on it last week, Mike. You say you're coming around a little bit this week?
I am coming around. And actually, real quick, I just got some breaking news that really doesn't, I guess, kind of pertains to FPC. Fleming Island, who FPC will play the last week of the season, just actually made a change at head coach. So they got longtime football coach Tom McPherson, who was at Baker County and Orange Park. He will replace Derek Cipoletti. So that means that all these notes that I had updated this week need to be redone.
No, you go. More work for Mike Licio.
Right. I was sitting there thinking, you know what? I got one thing accomplished on my vacation. I got all my football prep, my preseason football prep done, but now I'll go start doing it again. Now, as far as Mike Brown, the more I think about it, the more I've come around to your way of thinking. I was skeptical at first, but then I once you start to peel the layers back and you start to really think about it and start to look back on it, he did a lot of great things in his time in Cleveland. You talked about the success he had at Sacramento. He probably should have never been let go in Sacramento. And, he's going to bring an offensive philosophy that the Knicks sorely needed. I mean, last year, not only did they not have an offensive philosophy at times, like all the time, they didn't play defense either. So, the more I thought about it is, okay, well, if they're not going to be good defensively, they got to be good offensively. And like you said, we've seen him work players in, guys that, I wouldn't think of Larry Hughes, for example, as a guy who I think of as a team player historically, but, he was able to get production out of him and make it work with him and LeBron. And I think this is going to be, the more I think about it, the better I feel about the Knicks, the added depth, the weakening of the Eastern Conference. I think everything is playing their way. I'm not going to go as far as to say that they're going to win the East, but because I know better, but I do feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, and everybody likes to say, oh, Mike Brown, he had LeBron James. Well, LeBron James was a young dude when Mike Brown was coaching there, and he coached him to the finals with a roster of LeBron James and, Anderson Varejao, and players like that. Drew Gooden was on that team, I believe, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, just.
I love Zydrunas Ilgauskas.
It's hard to believe this team went to the finals, but you got it. I know. Okay, great. LeBron James was there, no doubt. In my opinion, I love LeBron. I think he's to me. Most people can go with Jordan. To me, LeBron is the GOAT. So I get it, but at the same time, he was very young, and you're talking about it. Even the greatest, even Michael Jordan had Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, all of these players, Steve Kerr hitting threes from the outside. So the Bulls had a pretty good roster, much better roster than the Mike Brown Cavaliers had. But that team went to the finals, and he's an offensive coach. They brought him into Sacramento, hadn't made the playoffs. I forget what it was now, in like 20 years or 15 years, whatever it was. And, he coaches them to the playoffs, turns them into one of the best offenses in the NBA, and takes the Golden State Warriors, who, let's face it, are one of the great teams of this era, to 7 games. So Brown had a great run there in Sacramento. Who knows what happened year 3, gets fired early on there. But the track record is there as an offensive coach, and this is what this team needs now. And I've heard a lot of people the past week talk about how, he's not as good a coach as Thibodeau. If you're going to fire Thibodeau, you got to bring in Pat Riley, basically somebody incredible. But I think the people are putting Thibs on this pedestal that he doesn't deserve to be on. First of all, Thibs, he never coached a team to the NBA Finals. That's something that Brown has already done. And just look at the Knick track record with Thibodeau. It is a record of not being able to get over the hump. 4 times now he's coached the Knicks into the playoffs with home court advantage and being the favorite, and 4 times they lost to underdogs. And that is something that is extremely important. They lost to the Hawks. They lost to the Miami Heat. The Heat were an 8th seed that year. They lost to the Pacers twice. Both times they had home court and were the favorites. When coaches have that track record, they get fired, because that's almost a half a decade of losing to underdogs, and you need a coach that's going to take the team to the next level. And with the moves that Leon Rose made to bring in Karl Anthony Towns, right, to bring in Bridges, there's a lot of offensive talent on this team now, and you need a coach that's going to be able to get that, mix all those ingredients together and make a great offense, specifically with Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, who looked like in the playoffs last year, they never played together. And when you have players of that magnitude, that offensive talent, you need to create a chemistry between them, almost Stockton Malone-like. That I need to see Mike Brown turn Brunson and Cat into the best dynamic duo in the NBA next year. And then he will have done his job.
9 full seasons as a head coach, and he made the playoffs 7 times. He's won at least 1 playoff series in all but 1 year, and that was the first year in Sacramento, the only year he didn't get out of the first round. And 550 playoff winning percentage, 600 career winning percentage. And again, when he was fired in Sacramento, they were 13-18. It's not like they were a team that was, teams get off to slow starts sometimes. They had a quick trigger on him. And so, But it works out to the Knicks' favor. I think, we were talking about it beforehand that, this is not the first time that I've been against, that people have been against hiring a coach, and it worked out in New York. So we'll see if it works out for him, though. But like I said, the more I looked at the record, I look at that 2000s. If you go back and look at that 07 Cleveland team, I would, other than LeBron, I would defy you to find somebody on that team that, if they put him on the Knicks roster right now, would be worthy of starting.
Well, the dream scenario for me is that Tom Thibodeau played the role of Buck Showalter, and Mike Brown is coming in to play the role of Joe Torre. And the New York Knicks will have the premier offense in the NBA next year and will be crowned NBA champions. We can dream, right? Have a great weekend. Yes. Have a great weekend, Flagler County.